Admiral Dae-ho Kim stood in the command center of his massive warship. Through the clear metal windows he could see thousands of stars scattered across the dark space, but his eyes focused on one empty spot where Earth used to be. Now there was nothing but floating rocks and dust. The bridge around him buzzed with quiet activity. His crew worked at their stations with smooth, practiced movements. These people looked human, but they were different. Their eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. Their fingers moved faster than normal humans could manage. They had been changed by 500,000 years of living in the cold depths of space. Ji-woo Park walked up to him carrying ancient data tablets. She was the keeper of the sacred records, the woman who remembered everything that had happened to their people. Her long black hair was streaked with silver, even though her body was only 30 years old. The memories she carried had aged her in ways that time could not. "Admiral," she said softly, "the fleet is ready. All ships report green status. We have waited 500,000 years for this moment." Dae-ho nodded but did not turn away from the window. Out there, somewhere, beyond the distant stars, lived the aliens who had destroyed his homeworld. They had forgotten about humans completely. In their records, Earth's people were listed as extinct, just another dead race that had failed to survive in the galaxy. "Tell me the story again, Ji-woo," Dae-ho said. "I want to hear it one more time, before we begin." Ji-woo touched one of her tablets and began to speak. Her voice carried the weight of centuries. "Long ago, our ancestors lived on a blue world called Earth. It was beautiful, with green forests and deep oceans. Humans were young then, just learning to travel between the stars. They were curious and hopeful. They wanted to make friends with other races." She paused and looked at the empty space where Earth had been. Then the hegemony found us. The Vorthak Empire with their sharp claws and cold hearts. The Nexari Collective with their crystal bodies and shared thoughts. The Ethereal, Dominion with their gas forms and ancient wisdom. They came to us with smiles and promises. Dae-ho clenched his fists. He had heard this story countless times, but it still made his blood burn with anger. "They said they would protect us," Ji-woo continued. "They said Earth was in a dangerous part of space. Pirates and wild aliens might attack us. If we joined their hegemony alliance, they would keep us safe. All they wanted in return was to build some bases on our world. Small ones, they said, just for protection." The story was always the same, passed down through the generations like a sacred text. No detail was ever forgotten. Our ancestors believed them. They signed the treaty. They welcomed the aliens to Earth with open arms. The Vorthak built their military bases. The Nexari set up their research stations. The Ethereals established their communication hubs. Ji-woo's voice grew harder now. But it was all lies. They were not there to protect us. They were there to study us, to learn our weaknesses, to steal our technology and our resources. When they had taken everything they wanted, they revealed their true plan. Dae-ho finally turned away from the window to face her. His eyes, like all humans of his generation, held tiny flecks of starlight. They had adapted to see clearly in the darkness between worlds. "The Great Betrayal," he said quietly. "Yes, they called it Operation Clean Slate." While human leaders met, with hegemony ambassadors to discuss trade agreements, alien fleets surrounded Earth. Antimatter bombs fell from the sky like rain. Our planet was broken apart in hours. Ji-woo showed him images on her tablet, ancient recordings from the last days of Earth, cities burning, oceans boiling away, continents cracking like eggs. Most humans died that day, but some escaped. My ancestor, the great leader Taemin Lee, had suspected the aliens' true intentions. He secretly prepared evacuation ships. When the attack began, he saved 3,000 people. The images changed to show the refugee fleet fleeing Earth as it died behind them. Small ships racing toward the edge of the solar system while their homeworld came apart. Taemin Lee led the survivors to the outer rim of the galaxy, to the cold, empty space between the spiral arms where no one else wanted to live. The aliens thought we would die out there. They thought humans were too weak to survive without a warm world to live on. Dae-ho smiled, but there was no humor in it. They were wrong. Very wrong. We did not just survive. We grew stronger. We adapted. We learned. Generation after generation, we prepared for this day. Bo-Ra Shin approached them from her station. She was the ship's tactical officer, responsible for weapons and battle plans. Like all the crew, she moved with the fluid grace of someone who had grown up in artificial gravity. "Admiral, our scouts have returned from hegemony space," she reported. "The intelligence is confirmed. They still control the same territories. They stole from us. They have grown fat and lazy on the wealth they took from conquered worlds." "How many species have they destroyed since Earth?" Daeho asked. "Thousands," Bo-Ra replied. "Maybe tens of thousands. They follow the same pattern, every time. Make contact with a young race, offer protection, move in their forces, strip the world bare, eliminate the natives." Daeho walked to the center of the bridge. Around him, his officers waited for orders. These people were the best of humanity. Each one had been trained from birth for this mission. Their bodies had been enhanced with technology the hegemony could not imagine. Their minds had been sharpened by centuries of study and preparation. "Show me our current status," he commanded. The main display screen lit up with tactical information. It showed the position of the human fleet spread across several light-years of space. Each dot represented a warship carrying weapons that could reshape reality itself. "First Fleet is in position at the edge of hegemony space," Bo-Ra reported. "Admiral Sung-Hwan Choi reports ready for combat operations. Second Fleet maintains position in the Void Zone as reserve force. Third Fleet has completed infiltration of the inner systems. Stealth ships? Captain Sujino's reconnaissance fleet has successfully penetrated 17 hegemony worlds. They report no detection by alien sensors." Daeho nodded. The stealth ships were one of humanity's greatest achievements. Built from dark matter and powered by controlled black holes, they could move through space without being seen or felt. The aliens had no idea human forces were already inside their territory. "What about the special projects?" Dr. Yoon Seo Kim reports that all bioweapons are ready for deployment. The consciousness bombs have been loaded onto the primary assault ships. Reality manipulation systems are online and tested. These were weapons the hegemony could not understand or defend against. Humans had learned to fight not just with energy and matter, but with the fundamental forces that held the universe together. Ji-Woo stepped forward again. "Admiral, there is something else you should know. Our agents have discovered monuments on several hegemony worlds, statues and buildings celebrating their victory over the primitive Earth dwellers. They turned our extinction into a holiday." The bridge fell silent. Every person there felt the same cold anger building in their chest. Daeho walked back to the window and stared out at the place where Earth had died. He thought about all the generations that had lived and died in the cold depths of space, waiting for this moment. Children who had never seen a real sun. Parents who had told stories of blue skies and green grass they would never see again. "They made one mistake," he said finally. "What mistake, sir?" Bo-Ra asked. "They let some of us live." He turned back to face his crew. Every eye on the bridge was focused on him. These people had trained their entire lives for this moment. Their parents had trained for it. Their grandparents had trained for it. 500,000 years of preparation all led to this single decision. "Open a channel to all ships," Daeho commanded. The communications officer activated the fleet-wide broadcast system. Now Daeho's voice would reach every human ship scattered across the galaxy. "Children of Earth," he began. "Today we end our long exile. Today we return to claim what was stolen from us. For 500,000 years, we have waited in the darkness. We have grown strong while our enemies grew weak. We have prepared while they celebrated." He paused, letting his words sink in. "They think we are extinct. They think humans are just another failed race, forgotten by history. They are about to learn how wrong they are." The tactical display showed green lights appearing on every ship in the fleet, weapon systems coming online, engines warming up for the jump to hyperspace. "Remember what they did to our world. Remember the 3 billion souls who died when Earth burned. Remember that they turned our suffering into their celebration. Today, we remind the galaxy why they should have been afraid of us." He looked at Bo-Ra, who waited with her finger over the combat system's activation panel. "All ships," Deho said into the communication system, "begin the reckoning protocol. It is time they remembered why they should have feared us." Bora pressed the activation panel. Across the human fleet, weapons systems hummed to life. Engines began to charge for the jump to hyperspace. Ships that had been hidden in the darkness for centuries started moving toward their targets. The aliens of the hegemony had no idea what was coming for them. They were about to discover that some grudges never die. They only grow stronger with time. Children of Earth were coming home. 3 months had passed since Admiral Dae-Ho Kim gave the order to begin the Reckoning Protocol. Now, across the vast territories of the Hegemony Alliance, strange things were happening that made no sense to anyone. On the border world of Kepler-67, a mining colony that extracted rare crystals from asteroid fields, the workers noticed something wrong with their sensors. Ships would appear on the detection grid for a few seconds, then vanish completely. When security forces went to investigate, they found nothing, not even traces of engine exhaust or energy signatures. The colony commander, a Vorthak named Grixtal, sent urgent messages to the regional headquarters. His reports described ghost ships that appeared and disappeared without following any known laws of physics. His superiors thought he was having mental problems from spending too much time in space. Similar reports came from dozens of worlds, cargo vessels vanishing between star systems, communication satellites going offline for no reason, entire space stations losing contact with their home planets, only to reappear hours later with their crews unconscious and their computers wiped clean. Supreme Commander Vexithala of the Vorthak Empire stood in the Great Council Chamber on the capital world of Sarkith Prime. Around the circular table sat representatives from all the major species of the Hegemony Alliance. The Nexari Collective sent 3 of their crystal beings, their bodies pulsing with confused light patterns. The Ethereal Dominion floated in containment fields, their gas forms swirling with nervous energy. "The situation is getting worse," Vexithala announced to the assembly. His voice carried the authority of someone who had commanded fleets for over 2 centuries. "In the past month, we have lost contact with 17 border colonies. Our investigation fleets find no traces of battle damage or enemy activity. One of the Nexari beings, its crystal body glowing pale blue, spoke through the translation device. Our deep space sensors detect no foreign ships in hegemony space. Whatever is causing these incidents does not register on any of our detection systems. This should be impossible." The largest of the ethereal representatives pulsed a darker shade of green. "Could this be a natural phenomenon? Perhaps some kind of spatial anomaly we have not encountered before?" Vexthala shook his head. His scaled face showed the worry he felt but tried to hide. "Natural phenomena do not selectively target military installations and communication hubs. This is enemy action. The question is, who has the technology to avoid our sensors completely?" While the hegemony leaders debated in their council chambers, Captain Su Jin-Oh was already deep inside their territory with her stealth reconnaissance fleet. Her ships moved through space like ghosts, invisible to every sensor system the aliens had developed over millions of years. Su Jin stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Silent Dawn, watching as her ships approached the Nexari crystal mines of Kepler 442b. This was one of the most heavily defended systems in hegemony space, protected by over 200 warships and multiple orbital defense platforms. "Stealth systems are holding steady," reported her navigation officer Minjai Park. "We are completely undetectable to their sensors." Sujin nodded. Human stealth technology was based on principles the aliens could not understand. Her ships existed partially outside normal spacetime, phasing in and out of reality at will. To the hegemony sensors, they simply were not there. "Begin infiltration protocol," she ordered. Across her fleet, small teams of human commandos prepared to board alien ships. These soldiers had been trained for centuries in infiltration and intelligence gathering. Their bodies had been modified to survive in any environment, and their minds had been enhanced to process information at superhuman speeds. Hyunwoo Nam led one of these teams. He was Sujin's best infiltrator, capable of moving through enemy territory without leaving any trace of his presence. His target was the main data storage facility on the planet below. Using personal stealth fields that bent light around his body, Hyunwoo slipped past alien guards and security systems. He moved like a shadow through the crystal corridors of the Nexari facility, heading for the central archive. What he found there made his blood run cold with rage. The archive was filled with monuments and displays celebrating the hegemony's greatest victories. Holographic images showed the destruction of dozens of worlds. Plaques listed the names of conquered species, with dates marking when each race had been completely eliminated. In the center of the main hall stood a massive statue made of black stone. At its base was a golden plaque that read, "In memory of our greatest triumph, the elimination of the primitive species of Sol 3, achieved in Galactic year 847-293. Their world provided valuable resources that fueled our expansion for the next millennium." Around the statue were smaller displays showing images from Earth's final days. Burning cities, fleeing ships, the planet itself breaking apart under antimatter bombardment. The aliens had turned humanity's extinction into a tourist attraction. Hyunwoo activated his recording equipment and documented everything. His team would need this evidence to show the other humans what they were fighting against. But more importantly, this information would help them identify the specific aliens who had planned and carried out the attack on Earth. While Hyunwoo gathered intelligence, other human forces were preparing for the first direct military engagement. Commander Jin Ho-yoon stood on the bridge of his dreadnought, the Earth's vengeance as it approached the Nexari defense fleet. His ship was a masterpiece of human engineering, built using technologies that had been developed over centuries of exile. The hull was composed of programmable matter that could reshape itself during battle. The weapon systems used controlled quantum tunneling to strike targets from impossible angles. "Enemy fleet detected," announced his tactical officer, So-min Lee. 237 ships in defensive formation. They are beginning to move to intercept us. Jin-ho smiled. The aliens thought they were facing a single ship. They had no idea what human technology was capable of. "Activate phase variant systems," he ordered. The Earth's vengeance began to flicker in and out of visible space. To the Nexari ships, it appeared as if multiple copies of the human vessel were appearing at random locations throughout their formation. The alien fleet commander, a crystal being called Zarketh, watched his sensors with growing confusion. His ships were reporting targets in 17 different positions simultaneously. This violated every law of physics he understood. "All ships, concentrate fire on the primary target," he ordered. The Nexari fleet opened fire with their most powerful weapons. Beams of crystallized energy lanced through space toward the human ship. But when the light faded, the Earth's vengeance was no longer there. Instead, it had materialized inside the formation of alien ships, phased into normal space directly. Between two Nexari cruisers, Jin-ho's weapon systems came online with devastating effect. The human ship fired quantum disruptor beams that tore through alien hulls like paper. But these were not ordinary weapons. They attacked the fundamental bonds that held matter together, causing enemy ships to simply fall apart at the molecular level. Within minutes, both cruisers were reduced to clouds of scattered atoms. The Earth's vengeance phased back out of normal space before the other alien ships could react. "Impossible," Zarketh whispered, as he watched his ships being destroyed by an enemy that seemed to exist in multiple places at once. The battle continued for exactly 17 minutes. When it ended, the entire Nexari defense fleet had been eliminated. Not a single human casualty was reported. News of the disaster at Kepler 442b reached Hegemony headquarters within hours. Supreme Commander Vexathala stared at the tactical reports with disbelief. An entire fleet destroyed by a single enemy ship that their sensors could barely track. "This is not possible," he said to his advisors. "No known technology can allow a ship to phase in and out of space like that." Prime Analyst Korthek, the Vorthak Empire's greatest military mind, studied the energy readings from the battle. "Sir, these quantum signatures are unlike anything in our databases, but there is something familiar about the basic patterns. They remind me of old records from the Sol System incident. Vexithala turned to look at him. The Sol System was destroyed 500,000 years ago. The species that lived there was eliminated completely. Our records show no survivors. That is what our records show, yes, Korthek agreed. But these energy patterns match the primitive quantum experiments that Sol 3 species was conducting before we ended their civilization. For a moment, Vexithala felt a chill run through his scaled body. But then he shook his head. Impossible. Even if some of them had escaped, they were too primitive to develop technology like this. They barely had faster-than-light travel. Meanwhile, in the depths of space, Admiral Daeho Kim received reports from all his commanders. The first strikes had been even more successful than planned. Human forces had penetrated deep into hegemony territory without being detected. Alien defense systems were completely unable to cope with human technology. But this was only the beginning. The real war was about to start. Send a message to all fleet commanders, Daeho ordered. Phase 2 begins now. It is time to let them know who they are fighting. Prime Analyst Korthek of the Vorthak Empire worked through the night in his laboratory, studying the energy readings from the destroyed Nexari fleet. His scaled hands moved quickly over the control panels as he ran analysis after analysis. Something about the attack patterns bothered him deeply. The quantum signatures were too precise, too advanced for any known technology. But buried deep in the energy traces, he found something that made his blood run cold. Mathematical constants that matched records from an ancient database. Records from a world called Earth. Computer, access historical files. Authorization Korthek Alpha 7, he commanded. The holographic display lit up with information that had not been accessed in over 400,000 years. Files about a primitive species that had lived in the Sol system. A species that the hegemony had eliminated during their expansion campaigns. Display tactical recordings from Operation Clean Slate, he ordered. Images filled the air around him. The final battle above Earth, where human ships had fought desperately against impossible odds. Most of the recordings showed human vessels being destroyed easily by superior hegemony firepower, but a few clips showed something different. In the final moments of the battle, some human ships had displayed unusual abilities, brief flashes of advanced technology that seemed far beyond what the species should have been capable of. Ships that had vanished from sensors for seconds at a time. Weapons that had damaged hegemony vessels in unexpected ways. At the time, these incidents had been dismissed as sensor errors or equipment malfunctions. No one had thought a primitive race could develop such technology. But now, looking at the quantum signatures from the recent attacks, Korthek saw the truth. They survived, he whispered to himself. Some of them escaped, and they have been preparing for revenge. Before he could alert his superiors, alarms began sounding throughout the facility. The main tactical display showed red warning lights, appearing across multiple star systems. Admiral Xionghuan Choi stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Prometheus Reborn, as it dropped out of hyperspace above the hegemony fortress world of Cathara. This planet was one of the most heavily defended locations in alien space, protected by orbital battle stations and millions of soldiers. Around his ship, the rest of the human Second Fleet materialized from hyperspace. 50 massive warships, each one carrying weapons that could reshape reality itself. The sight should have been terrifying to any defender, but the aliens still did not understand what they were facing. Admiral, we are receiving multiple incoming transmissions from the planet's surface, reported his communications officer, Yoon-hee Kim. They are demanding that we identify ourselves and state our business. Xionghuan smiled grimly. After 500,000 years of waiting, it was time to introduce themselves. Open a channel to all hegemony forces in this system, he ordered. The main screen showed the face of General Thex Mori, the Vorthak commander of Cathara's defenses. His reptilian features showed confusion and growing alarm as he realized the size of the human fleet. Unknown vessels, you have entered restricted hegemony space without authorization. Identify yourselves immediately or you will be fired upon. Xionghuan stepped into view of the camera. His human features would be strange to the alien general, but not completely unfamiliar. The hegemony kept records of all the species they had conquered and destroyed. General Thex Mori, he said calmly. My name is Admiral Seung Hwan Choi, commanding officer of the 2nd Fleet of the Terran Restoration Navy. We are the children of Earth, and we have come home. The alien general's eyes widened in shock and disbelief. Impossible. The Earth species was eliminated centuries ago. You cannot be. We are exactly who you think we are. Seung Hwan interrupted. The survivors of your greatest crime. The witnesses to your betrayal. The inheritors of your guilt. On planets throughout the system, hegemony forces scrambled to battle stations. But they were already too late. Deploy consciousness bombs, Seung Hwan ordered. From the human ships came weapons unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Not explosives or energy beams, but pure, concentrated experience. The psychic weight of 500,000 years of human suffering, compressed into focused streams of consciousness. The weapons struck the defending aliens like invisible hammers. Suddenly, every Vorthak soldier on the planet found himself experiencing Earth's final days through human eyes. They felt the terror of watching their world burn, the desperation of fleeing families, the crushing despair of losing everything they had ever known. But this was not just memory. The consciousness bombs forced the aliens to live through accelerated lifetimes as humans. They experienced growing up on Earth's green hills. They felt the joy of discovery as their species reached for the stars. They knew the hope and trust with which humans had welcomed alien visitors. Then came the betrayal. The bombs. The destruction. Death multiplied by billions. The effect on the hegemony forces was instant and devastating. Soldiers dropped their weapons and fell to their knees, sobbing uncontrollably. Starship crews abandoned their posts, unable to function under the crushing weight of emotional trauma. Within minutes, the entire planetary defense system had collapsed, not from physical damage, but from psychological overwhelm. General Thex Mori stared at his command screens in horror as his forces simply stopped fighting. His communications systems filled with reports of soldiers having complete mental breakdowns. What have you done to my troops, Ya? He demanded. We have given them the gift of understanding, Seung Hwan replied. For 500,000 years, we have carried the weight of what you did to us. Now you know how it feels. While the 2nd Fleet dealt with Cathara, other human forces struck at targets across hegemony space. Dr. Yoon Seo Kim led a team of scientists aboard the research vessel Discovery as it approached a Nexari breeding world called Crystal Garden. Dr. Kim had spent centuries studying the biological samples that human agents had collected from hegemony species. She understood their genetics better than they understood themselves. More importantly, she had learned how to use that knowledge as a weapon. Release the evolutionary accelerants, she ordered. From orbit, her ship dispersed a cloud of microscopic machines into the planet's atmosphere. These nanobots were designed to interact with Nexari genetic material in very specific ways. They would not kill the crystal beings directly. Instead, they would force them to evolve rapidly. On the planet below, Nexari citizens began to change. Their crystal bodies started growing in new directions. Some became too heavy to support their own weight. Others developed new organs that their nervous systems could not control. The changes happened over hours instead of millions of years. The accelerated evolution was not random. Dr. Kim had programmed it to recreate the same kind of environmental pressure that early humans had faced during their evolution on Earth. The crystal beings were experiencing what it was like to adapt or die under extreme conditions. Most could not handle the stress. Their minds, used to the slow, careful thought processes of a hive species, could not cope with rapid individual change. Entire cities fell into chaos as the population struggled with bodies and minds that were changing faster than they could understand. On the Vorthak homeworld of Sarketh Prime, General Yoonji Kang was demonstrating humanity's mastery over the fundamental forces of physics. Her ship, the Reality Forge, hung in orbit above the planet's capital city. Activate gravitational manipulation systems, she commanded. The human ship extended invisible fields of force that reached down to the planet's surface. Gravity, one of the weakest forces in nature, became a tool of war in human hands. Buildings began to lift off the ground. not explosively, but slowly and smoothly, as if gravity had simply decided to work in reverse. Entire city districts rose into the air while their inhabitants watched in terror and amazement. But Yunji was not interested in destruction for its own sake. Her target was more specific. The gravity fields focused on the government district, where the Vorthak High Command had their headquarters. The massive military complex, built to withstand orbital bombardment and ground assault, simply floated away from the planet's surface. Inside, Vorthak generals found themselves weightless and helpless as their command center drifted slowly into space. "Attention, Vorthak High Command," Yunji's voice echoed through their communication systems. "You are now experiencing what it feels like to have your world taken away from you. This is what you did to us 500,000 years ago." The demonstration lasted exactly 1 hour, then the gravity fields released their hold, and the government complex crashed back to the planet's surface. The building was destroyed, but most of the aliens inside survived. The message was clear. Humans could have killed them all, but chose not to. Across the galaxy, similar scenes played out on dozens of worlds. Human forces struck with precision and overwhelming power, but their goal was not genocide. It was education. Scholar Wanbin Zhang sat in his study aboard the fleet command ship, preparing for the moment he had trained his entire life for. As humanity's greatest expert on alien languages and culture, he would be the one to deliver the message that would change everything. "Open channels to all major hegemony communication networks," he ordered. Across thousands of star systems, every communication device owned by the hegemony suddenly activated. The galaxy burned with war unlike anything it had ever seen. After Scholar Wanbin Zhang's broadcast reached every corner of hegemony space, the alien leaders knew they faced an enemy that threatened their very existence. They threw everything they had into the fight. Supreme Commander Vexthala stood in the war room of the hegemony's greatest fortress, Deep Core Station. Around him, military leaders from every member species worked frantically at tactical displays showing the spread of human attacks across their territory. "Status report?" Vexthala demanded. General Crickstar of the Ethereal Dominion floated closer, his gas form swirling with agitated colors. "We have lost contact with 47 major worlds in the past week. Our deep space monitoring stations report massive human fleets moving toward the core systems. They are not just attacking military targets anymore. They are systematically dismantling our entire civilization." Commander Nexali of the Nexari Collective pulsed with urgent red light. "Our analysis of captured human technology shows capabilities that should be impossible. Their ships exist partially outside normal spacetime. Their weapons manipulate fundamental forces we barely understand. How did a primitive species develop such advanced technology?" Vexthala's scaled hands clenched into fists. The question haunted him. How had the weak, trusting humans who had welcomed the hegemony to Earth become these terrifying beings who could reshape reality itself? "It does not matter how they did it," he said finally. "What matters is stopping them. Activate protocol. Omega. Mobilize every ship, every soldier, every weapon we have. If we do not stop them here, our species will join the humans in extinction." Protocol Omega was the hegemony's ultimate contingency plan. It called for the complete militarization of their society. Every civilian ship would be converted to military use. Every citizen would be drafted into service. Resources from 1,000 worlds would be poured into the war effort. Within days, the largest fleet in galactic history began assembling at Deep Core Station. Trillion-being armies prepared for deployment. Weapons that could crack moons were brought out of storage and loaded onto super dreadnoughts the size of small cities. But they were preparing to fight an enemy that had spent 500,000 years evolving beyond their understanding. Fleet Admiral Haiyan Lim commanded the human war effort from her mobile command center, the Eternal Covenant. Her ship existed in 11 dimensions simultaneously, allowing her to coordinate battles across thousands of star systems as if they were happening in the same room. Around her, holographic displays showed the current status of every human fleet in the galaxy. Her enhanced mind, linked to quantum consciousness interfaces, could process information at speeds that made her think faster than most computers. "Admiral, hegemony forces are massing at Deep Core Station," reported her intelligence officer, Junho Song. Preliminary estimates suggest they have assembled over 10 million ships. Ha-Un studied the tactical display without concern. Numbers meant nothing when your enemy could not even see you coming. "What is our current fleet strength?" she asked. "All active fleets combined total approximately 50,000 ships, Admiral." The human officers around the command center did
not look worried about being outnumbered 200 to 1. They had been trained to fight impossible odds. More importantly, they had weapons the aliens could not comprehend. "Begin deployment of the reality anchors," Ha-Un ordered. Across human
space, special ships began moving into position around key star systems. These vessels carried humanity's most closely guarded secret, devices that could alter the fundamental laws of physics within a localized area. The reality anchors would create zones where human technology worked normally, but alien technology became unreliable. Faster than light drives would fail, energy weapons would lose power, even the basic fusion reactors that powered hegemony ships would become unstable. While the fleets prepared for battle, individual human operatives continued their work behind enemy lines. Psychic warfare specialist Min-Soo Park led a team of mental commandos aboard the stealth ship Mind's Edge as it approached the Ethereal Dominion's capital world. The Ethereals had made a terrible mistake. Confident in their psychic abilities, they had tried to wage mental warfare against the humans. They discovered too late that human minds had been strengthened by centuries of meditation in the cosmic void. "Initiating psychic counterattack," Min-Soo announced to his team. The human mind warriors reached out with their consciousness, making contact with the ethereal hive mind that connected every member of their species. But instead of trying to break the connection, they did something far worse. They fed the ethereal collective consciousness the concentrated memories of every species the hegemony had ever destroyed. Billions of death experiences flooded through the psychic network all at once. The weight of genocide multiplied by countless civilizations crashed down on every ethereal mind simultaneously. The effect was instantaneous and devastating. Across their homeworld and throughout their space, ethereal beings simply stopped functioning. Their gas forms collapsed into inert clouds as their consciousness was overwhelmed by the psychic equivalent of a tsunami. The Ethereal Dominion, one of the founding members of the Hegemony Alliance, effectively ceased to exist as a functioning civilization within hours. Meanwhile, Captain So-Young Kim and her crew had discovered the hegemony's ultimate weapon. Deep in the void between galaxies, hidden inside an artificial asteroid field, lay a device that could sterilize entire spiral arms of the universe. The Galaxy Killer was the size of a small moon, built using the combined technology of every hegemony species. It was designed as a last resort weapon, capable of destroying all life in the Milky Way if the hegemony faced total defeat. "Scanning the device now," reported her science officer Woo Jin Park. "The power source appears to be a controlled black hole. The weapon fires streams of pure entropy, designed to age everything in its path by billions of years in seconds." So-Young studied the tactical display showing the massive weapon. Her ship, the Time's Edge, was small compared to the Galaxy Killer, but size was not always important in space combat. "Can we destroy it?" she asked. "Not with conventional weapons. The device is protected by temporal shields that exist outside normal time. Our attacks would age away before they reached the target." So-Young smiled. The aliens still thought in terms of conventional warfare. "Then we will not attack it conventionally. Prepare the causality bomb." The causality bomb was one of humanity's most exotic weapons. It did not destroy targets in the present. Instead, it reached backward through time to prevent them from ever being built. The weapon fired, sending a pulse of temporal energy toward the Galaxy Killer. The energy traveled not just through space, but through time itself, reaching back to the moment when the first components of the device were assembled. In the past, alien engineers working on the project suddenly found their materials crumbling to dust. Computer files containing the weapon's blueprints became corrupted. The scientists who designed it forgot their calculations. In the present, the Galaxy Killer simply faded out of existence. It had never been built, because the causality bomb had made it impossible for it to be built. The tide of war turned decisively at the Battle of the Nexus, where humanity revealed the full extent of their technological mastery. Admiral Jinnah, Lee commanded the Third Fleet as it engaged the largest hegemony armada ever assembled. 10 million alien ships faced 50,000 human vessels in the space around a massive star called the Nexus. The battle should have been a slaughter, with the humans overwhelmed by sheer numbers. Instead, it became a demonstration of why numbers meant nothing against superior technology. "Activate entropy cannons," Jinnah ordered. From the human ships came weapons that fired concentrated streams of time itself. The beams struck alien vessels and aged them millions of years in seconds. Hull plating corroded away. Electronics failed as their components reached the end of their operational lifespans. Entire ships crumbled into dust as they experienced tons of wear in moments. But the entropy weapons were just the beginning. Human ships began firing temporal missiles that struck their targets in the past, before they had been launched. Reality around the battlefield became fluid as the humans edited the laws of physics to suit their tactical needs. "Impossible," whispered Admiral Thekfor, commanding the hegemony fleet. He watched his ships being destroyed by weapons that violated everything he understood about the universe. Some human vessels fired gravity bombs that created localized black holes, consuming entire enemy formations. Others used quantum disruptors that caused alien ships to exist and not exist at the same time, trapping them in probability loops. The most terrifying human weapons were the ones that attacked information itself. Ships that were struck by these devices did not just die. They were edited out of history. Their crews forgot they had ever existed. The records of their construction were erased from every database. The Battle of the Nexus lasted 18 hours. When it ended, the hegemony armada was not just defeated. Most of it had been retroactively prevented from ever existing. News of the catastrophic defeat spread through hegemony space faster than their ships could retreat. On every world, alien populations began to panic as they realized their military forces were powerless against the ready. The war ended not with the complete destruction of the hegemony, but with something far more profound. One by one, alien worlds began broadcasting surrender signals. The message was always the same. They accepted human terms and would lay down their weapons. Supreme Commander Vexithala was among the last to surrender. He stood in the ruins of his command center on Deep Core Station, surrounded by the wreckage of the greatest military force the galaxy had ever seen. When Admiral Daeho Kim's ship materialized in the station's docking bay, Vexithala knew the age of hegemony rule was truly over. The two leaders met in what had once been the hegemony's most secure conference room. Vexithala, his scales dulled, with age and defeat, sat across from Daeho, whose eyes still held the cold fire of someone who remembered Earth's last days. "I do not understand," Vexithala said quietly. "Your species has the power to destroy us all. Why do you offer mercy? We showed none to your people." Daeho looked at the alien commander for a long moment before answering. "Because becoming like you would mean you truly won. We spent 500,000 years preparing for this moment, but we also spent that time deciding what kind of people we wanted to be when it came. The formal surrender took place on Earth itself, but this was not the broken, dead world the hegemony had left behind. Using technology that bordered on godlike power, humanity had reconstructed their homeworld atom by atom. President Tae-Hyun-oh stood in the rebuilt city of New Seoul, addressing representatives from every former hegemony world. Around him, the Earth that had been lost so long ago lived again. Blue oceans reflected white clouds. Green forests covered rolling hills. The air smelled of flowers and rain. But this Earth was different from the one that had died. Orbital rings surrounded the planet like jewelry, connecting to space elevators that reached up into the void. Floating cities drifted through the atmosphere, their gardens and parks visible from the ground. The night sky was filled with artificial stars, each one a space habitat housing millions of humans. "The terms of surrender are not negotiable," President Oh announced to the alien delegates. "But they are not meant as punishment. They are meant as education." The aliens who had once ruled the galaxy now found themselves in an entirely new situation. For the next 500,000 years, their species would serve humanity, not as slaves, but as students learning what it meant to build instead of destroy. Director Min-Ho Song oversaw the establishment of the Terran rehabilitation centers on dozens of worlds. These facilities looked more like universities than prisons. Former hegemony leaders lived in comfortable surroundings while undergoing consciousness reformation. The process was not torture, but it was thorough. Using advanced neurology technology, the aliens experienced accelerated virtual lifetimes as members of species they had once oppressed. They lived as primitive farmers watching their world burn from orbit. They felt the terror of fleeing refugees, whose only crime was living on a planet the hegemony wanted. Supreme, Commander Vexthala spent his first year in rehabilitation, experiencing life as a human civilian during Earth's final days. He felt the joy of watching his children play in Earth's parks. He knew the pride of humanity's first steps into space. Then came the betrayal, the bombs, the desperate flight from a dying world. When the virtual lifetime ended, Vexthala wept for the first time in his long life. Not from sadness, but from understanding. He finally knew what the hegemony had stolen from humanity, and why the humans had every right to their vengeance. "I remember Earth now," he told Director Song during one of their sessions. "I remember what we took from you. How do you find the strength to forgive us?" "We have not forgiven you," Song replied honestly, "but we have chosen to teach you instead of destroying you. Perhaps your children will earn forgiveness that you never can." The rebuilding process was not limited to changing minds. Governor Eugene Kim worked with reformed alien administrators to establish new governments throughout former hegemony space. The old system of conquest and exploitation was replaced with something unprecedented in galactic history: voluntary cooperation. On the former Vorthak homeworld of Sarketh Prime, humans and aliens worked side by side to repair the damage caused by centuries of war. The massive military factories were converted into schools and hospitals. The monument celebrating Earth's destruction was replaced with a memorial honoring all the species the hegemony had eliminated. Eugene walked through the reconstructed capital city, watching Vorthak children playing with human children in the parks. The older aliens still showed signs of the psychological changes they had undergone in rehabilitation, but their offspring were growing up in a world where cooperation was normal and conquest was unthinkable. "How long will it take?" asked Krixtal, a former Vorthak general who now served as an education administrator. "How long until our people truly understand what we did wrong?" "For some, it has already happened," Eugene replied. "For others, it may take generations, but your children will grow up knowing a different way. That is what matters." The most ambitious project was the Galactic Restoration Initiative, led by Chief Scientist Bo-Young Park. Using humanity's mastery over space and time, her teams worked to bring back the civilizations the hegemony had destroyed over the millennia. The process required reading quantum echoes from the past, extracting the information patterns that had once been living beings, and reconstructing them in the present. It was incredibly complex work that pushed even human technology to its limits. "We have successfully restored the Kethmori civilization," Bo-Young reported to President O during one of their regular meetings. "Their homeworld of Verdant Prime now supports a population of 50 million beings. They remember everything that happened to them, but they also understand that humanity brought them back." The restored species were not merely grateful to their human saviors. Many of them became some of humanity's strongest allies in the work of galactic rehabilitation. They understood better than anyone what it meant to face extinction, and they wanted to ensure it never happened again. The Nexari collective underwent perhaps the most dramatic transformation. Their hive mind, partially dissolved by human psychic weapons, began to fragment into individual consciousness. For the first time in their species' history, Nexari beings began to think independent thoughts and feel personal emotions. Crystal singer Nexathara was among the first of her people to experience true individuality. She stood in the garden of a rehabilitation center, watching the sunset paint the sky in colors she had never noticed before. "Is this what you call loneliness?" she asked her human counselor, Dr. Sung-Min Kim. "Sometimes," he replied. "But it is also what we call freedom." You are no longer bound by the thoughts of others. Your mind is your own. Nexthara's crystal body pulsed with new colors as she experienced emotions her species had never known. Fear, wonder, hope, sadness, all the complex feelings that came with being truly alive as an individual. It is frightening, she admitted, but also beautiful. Years passed, then decades. The galaxy slowly transformed under human guidance. Trade routes that had once carried stolen wealth now transported art, knowledge, and friendship between worlds. Species that had been enemies for millions of years began to work together on projects that benefited everyone. Admiral Dae-ho Kim, now elderly despite the life-extending treatments available to humans, stood once again in the gardens of New Seoul. But this time, he was not alone. His granddaughter, Lieutenant Hee-jin Kim, walked beside him through the pathways where Earth's original flowers bloomed again. "Grandfather," she said, "the Academy graduation ceremony is next week. I will be the first human in our family to be born on Earth since the Exodus." Dae-ho smiled as he watched her. Hee-jin represented something he had never dared to hope for. During the dark years in the void between stars, she was a human who had never known exile, never carried the weight of racial extinction, never burned with the need for revenge. She was what humanity had fought to become. "Tell me about your classmates," he said. "There are humans, of course, but also reformed Vorthak, individual Nixari, even some young ethereals who have learned to maintain stable forms. We all study together, play together, dream together about what we will build in the galaxy, around them." The garden was filled with beings from dozens of species all living peacefully together. Children of former enemies played games that would have been impossible under the old hegemony system. "Do you think we have truly settled the grudge?" Hee-jin asked. Dae-ho considered the question carefully. In the distance he could see the memorial that listed the names of every human who had died when Earth burned. 3 billion names carved in quantum crystal so they would last forever. "The grudge is settled," he said finally. "But the real victory was not in defeating our enemies. It was in making sure that what happened to us will never happen to anyone else again." Above them, the night sky showed the lights of 1,000 worlds where former enemies now lived as friends. Space lanes filled with ships carrying students, artists, and explorers instead of conquerors. Orbital habitats where species that had once tried to exterminate each other now worked together to push the boundaries of knowledge and discovery. The hegemony had sought to rule the galaxy through fear and domination. They had succeeded for millions,